True or false? Migration is currently at an all-time high, surpassing previous historical levels. False. Migration is at an all-time high, or at least that's what many headlines would like you to believe. But is it really true? Today we're going to debunk this misconception and reveal the facts about global migration. Hello everyone, my name is Shabna Makrami, and welcome to News in 5. In today's episode, we'll tackle a widespread myth that migration is at an all-time high. We'll look at data, compare historical trends, and understand the real story behind global migration. So let's get started. Let's define the concept first. The belief that migration is at an all-time high has been fueled by various media reports and political discourse. These sources often show alarming images and statistics, creating a perception that we're experiencing an unprecedented migration crisis. These images and charts might look concerning, but they don't tell the whole story. The notion that migration is at an unprecedented level is a common misconception, often amplified by media reports and political rhetoric. However, historical data and demographic studies indicate that current global migration levels are relatively stable. To understand this, we have to look at the historical context first. Migration has been constant throughout human history. Significant migration waves occurred during the 19th and early 20th century when millions moved from Europe to the Americas. During the post-World War II era, large-scale migrations also took place with people moving from war-torn areas to more stable regions. Now let's look at the current trends. According to the United Nations, the number of international migrants globally has increased over the past few decades. But this growth is proportional to the global population increase. This is an important factor here. The percentage of international migrants relative to the world population has remained stable at around 3% since the 1960s. This stability indicates that while the absolute number may have been higher, the migration rate in relation to the population size has not drastically changed. BBC report on migrant crossing the English channels in 2021 reports discusses a significant increase in the number of migrants attempting to cross the English Channel, framing it as a crisis without historical comparison. CNN, for example, in their coverage on global migration called Channel Crossing, hundreds more migrants reaching UK after record day. This was in 2022. This article emphasized the high numbers of migrants globally, suggesting an unprecedented situation. Fox News on U.S. border crisis, immigration crisis at an all-time high, which was reported in 2021. Fox News often highlights the challenges at the U.S.-Mexican border, portraying the current situation as the worst in history. Some other examples. In 2018, former U.S. President Donald Trump claimed that illegal immigration is at an all-time high to justify stricter border controls. The Daily Mail reported in 2016 that immigration to the UK is at a record high. In Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison in 2019 warned of unprecedented levels of immigration impacting the nation's resources. French President Emmanuel Macron in 2019 spoke about explosive levels of migration into Europe. The Times of India in 2018 headed, "India faces all-time high illegal immigration from Bangladesh." These are just examples. These statements create a sense of urgency and crisis. But do they really hold up under scrutiny? These examples illustrate how the media and the political discourse often frame migration as being at an all-time high, contributing to the common misunderstanding. By providing historical context and current data, it becomes evident that while the number of migrants has increased in absolute terms, it has not surged to unprecedented levels when viewed relative to the global population growth. When we consider migration as a percentage of the global population, the rates have remained relatively stable. This means that while more people are migrating, it is in proportion to the growth of the global population. Here's a chart that explains this in further detail. You can see in this chart that for refugee, the percentage is only 0.3%. Non-immigrant migration is at 83.3%. Internal migration is 13.1%. International migration is 3.3%. Migration is not a new phenomenon. It is a natural part of human history. People have always moved in search of better opportunities, safety, and to reunite with family. What we're seeing today is a continuation of this age-old practice. Let's take a brief look at history. From the Asian migration out of Africa to the large-scale movements during the Industrial Revolution, humans have always migrated. These movements were driven by various factors such as economic opportunities, conflict, and environmental changes. Historically, migration has always been a part of human existence. In the late 19th and the early 20th centuries, massive migration waves occurred during the wars, famines, and economic opportunities. For example, over 30 million Europeans migrated to the United States between 1850 and 1914. Today's migration trends are influenced by several factors, including economic opportunities, conflicts, and climate change. However, it is important to note that the majority of migration is regional. Most migrants move within their own continent rather than cross-continental boundaries. This is what my pie chart shows as well. Recent events like the Syrian refugee crisis and the Venezuelan migration have brought attention to migration issues. However, these are not unprecedented in scale. In fact, historical events like the post-World War II migration were much larger in relative terms. When we do a comparison of historical migration spikes with recent trends, you will notice that while the numbers today are significant, they're not without precedent. For example, again, the post-World War era saw a huge migration flow of people fled war-torn regions and sought new beginnings. So why do we have this perception that migration is at an all-time high? Well, one reason is the constant media coverage and the political spotlight on migration issues. With a 24/7 news cycle and social media amplify migration stories, often focusing on crisis and dramatic images, this can create a skewed perception, making it seem like migration is out of control. It is also important to understand that how data is collected and reported. Migration data can be complex, and different sources might use different methodologies. For a clear picture, we need to rely on comprehensive, well-researched data from reputable organizations. For example, in 1951, UN started registering refugee data. In that year, its database covered information for only 21 countries. And that the real number of refugees was of course much higher, as there were obviously more than 21 countries in the world. From there, the number of countries increased to 76 in 1970, 147 in 1990, 211 in 2010, and 216 in 2018. As the number of countries increased and were added onto the database, so of course did the number of refugees, which means that the data severely underestimated past refugee numbers, as most countries' data were simply missing. In other words, the number of refugees didn't increase. What increased was the data that was being actually reported. So to just sum up, migration is not at an all-time high when we consider it relative to the global population. Historical migration rates show that today's levels are consistent with past trends. Migration is a constant in human history, driven by various factors and not just recent phenomena. Remember, understanding the facts helps us make better decisions and foster a more informed society. Meaning the start of the solution to this misconception is to first focus on ensuring our data is correct. While migration remains a crucial global issue, the notion that we are experiencing unprecedented level is not completely accurate. Understanding the true dynamics of migration helps foster an informed discussions and better policies that support both migrants and the host communities. By grounding our perceptions in facts, we can create effective, humane, and sustainable immigration policies. These policies not only address the realities of migration, but also ensure the well-being of migrants and the societies they integrate into. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to our next video where we debunk more migration myths with facts and insights. I'm Shabnam Akrami, and thanks for watching News in 5. See you next time.